Hi, welcome to our session, DAT 117. My name is Ron Vries and I work for the SAP HANA Enterprise Cloud engineering group. I am joined today by two of our partners, and I'd like to ask them to quickly introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here. I'm Ajay Dholakia with Lenovo's Data Center Group. My role here is CTO for our SAP Alliance.
Thanks, Ajay and Ron. My name's Dominic Uliano. I'm from VMware. I'm a part of our Alliances team, and I run the alliance between SAP and VMware. Thanks for having me.
Hi, guys. So today we'll be speaking about the SAP HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition. And we're going to do that in a set of 4 blocks that you can see here. The objective being to introduce you to what the HANA Enterprise Cloud currently is and how the HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition has been evolved from this, and the differences that that Customer Edition has in the sense of how the normal HANA Enterprise Cloud works. And once we've done that, we will transition into the services that we use from Lenovo and the services that we use from VMware to realize this. Essentially, our HANA Enterprise Cloud has already existed for quite a few years. And as you can see from some of the numbers below, it's achieved quite a large status. This is an endeavor that has been steeled on 3 core principles, and they are important to understand from the beginning. When we look at what we have done here, you can see that the scale of things is very large. And in order to have such a scale and to run it effectively, you also need to standardize, which will not be a surprise. Of course, as we do these 2 things, we must also take care of security, since we are, if you will, the temporary custodians of your data, and we take that very seriously. When the cloud itself was built, these effects were taken into account, and the tooling and the operations methodologies that we have put in place are both enabled, but also, if you will, somewhat constrained by these factors. And that means that when you look at how HANA Enterprise Cloud provides its systems to its customers, there are choices that we make, and they may not always align with how you were used to running it when you ran your cloud or your activities on premise. So we deliver the HANA Enterprise Cloud standard, if you will, for lack of an addition word, in 5 locations. We provide it from SAP data centers around the world, and we also provide that exact same service with the same automation and the same operations paradigm and the same services that we have defined in our HANA Enterprise Cloud roles and responsibilities across hyperscalers as well. And the 3 hyperscalers we have enabled are shown here. And then we have another where we have a hyperscaler solution in China. The HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition is, if you will, the new incarnation of our services, and it focuses on delivering such services on premise. When we deliver our cloud, we focus mostly on the technology perspective of our services, and roughly they look like what you see in the middle. We have the HANA Enterprise Cloud in the blue box, which is focused on infrastructure, and that goes up into a degree of the technology support of the application. And then, of course, everything below, which we'll see in a moment. However, we also provide services which go above that, and we call that Cloud Application Services, and they represent the orange part of this slide here. So when you look at SAP's service portfolio, you can buy the entire portfolio, but you can also pick, if you will, just infrastructure side, and then later or not add the application services part of it. And then when we dive into specifically the service stack itself with regards to the HANA Enterprise Cloud as we have it right now, you can see that we have these blocks which you might recognize. The essence of this story here is that these services that we deliver in these blocks are subject to a bunch of certifications, which you can see on the left. Now, on the right, you see the delivery methodology and the responsibilities. But in the end, when you buy a service from HANA Enterprise Cloud, you buy it from SAP, and there's only one throat to choke. SAP then manages the relationship between the IaaS and the co-location. And in case of the standard clouds, these would be the SAP data centers and or the hyperscalers, of course, where the hyperscaler in that case manages his own data centers like Azure or Amazon or Google. We also interface with their operations activities. And so we in total deliver the entire stack, but we take care of the interaction underneath. When you look at the words I said in the beginning about standardization and scale and security, we have engineered a large number of concepts into our offering. Here you see them in a very miniature fashion, but I'll start with the right bottom. When we create our technology, we provide it from a concept called cells, HANA cells, and these are no more than large standardized constructs of infrastructure components, servers, networks, and such things that are so homogeneous that if one of these nodes in those cells, which is sort of depicted there with some red boxes, fails, we are able to repurpose another server in the same concept immediately to cover for that particular box that has failed. So in this case, the cells take care of hardware failure events, and we have enough redundant capacity to take care of such things and swap in new gear underneath. The same thing happens with the hyperscalers, but as you can see here, we have it for SAP. Now, when you move over to the left bottom, that means that when we are, for example, in either scale up or in scale out situations on bare metal, there is barely no disruption to get a new box in. So if you have a RAM failure or another part failure inside a actual server host box, we use our cell concept to move in a new machine and to bring it back up and restore your services, or in some cases just augment them again, since you have resilience already built in case of scale outs. We also have a very strict standardization in mind for the infrastructures. You can see that covers both virtualization and bare metal. So it's not only bare metal hosts, but also virtualization. In case of the HANA Enterprise Cloud on hyperscalers and also the customer edition, the underlying strata will be virtual machines. But in case of SAP data centers, there's also the purpose of bare metal. And where a hyperscaler offers them, we also provide bare metal there. In the customer edition, we will not be having bare metal to start with, but we'll talk more about that later. So in essence, the idea of standardization on the infrastructure side has also been carried over to the application side. So the way we distribute our application information over the servers that we use, VMs or bare metal, is highly standardized. We call that our reference architecture. And what that means is that we make choices about where things go. And these choices are supported by these three standards: scalability, standardization, and security. And they're not always the same as you're used to in your on-premise world. We can, in some cases, optimize for dependencies, but we cannot optimize for infrastructure usage. Because we have to eliminate dependencies and we have to make blocks easier to repurpose in other blocks. And that means that when you have a conversation with your SAP sales representatives, you will sometimes be discussing why a system is laid out in a certain amount of components versus how you do that yourself. And then you can understand, perhaps, given that you've heard this, what the reasons might be underneath. And some of the other reasons are also listed here. So now we move over to the differences between the classic standard HANA Enterprise Cloud that we have had so far and this new incarnation, the customer edition. And the essence of the story is that we had already quite a good coverage on most of the areas that you see on the left, but we were leaving no choice for our installed base that was on-premise and might have to stay there. And this was something we could address. And we have planned this now for some time to find a way to address this. And we therefore needed to also define a construct on how that could be addressed. And that construct applies to the SAP deliveries, the infrastructure deliveries, and the data center deliveries. In essence, we will partner up with providers. We're talking Lenovo and VMware in this deck, where we create the standard service of HANA Enterprise Cloud, but now on your premise. And it will have these features and tries to address a bunch of the topics that you see underneath, which is difficult regions, if you will, data sovereignty issues, and things like you need lower latency between your applications, and all those reasons that you might be aware of. This is an eye chart, but we've included it to be complete. We're talking about the green area here. And the most important part of this really is that you have more of a choice, if you will, on what happens with the workloads. They're closer to you, and their activities that we do are tightly integrated with your own change management process, right? As you would expect, we will not be updating or changing something when it is inconvenient for you from a business perspective. For the rest, you can read the various topics in here. Another one I'll call out is that this also offers those customers that are on site and have their own licenses, and in the past could not go to subscription user-based licensing, which is an OpEx concept. It empowers them to also go to the subscription-based licensing on-premise. And that in some cases is alleviating quite a few questions from customers that we have so far received. Here we summarize, if you will, on the right with the incarnation of the HANA Enterprise Cloud, where it goes on-premise. The most important part of this is the middle and the right, where in the middle we had our cloud before, and where in the right we do exactly the same cloud, but we are doing it on-premise. So there is no change to the standard roles and responsibility matrix of the HANA Enterprise Cloud service. We just deliver that same set of services and those same constructs and those same paradigms with the certifications and everything else around it on-premise. Now, when you go on-premise, the stack changes a bit from what you've seen before. And there you see the left part of it is gone, because now we really only have the right part of it left. You see the same types of activities. You see the same certifications. You see on the right the same responsibilities, other than now we have an infrastructure supplier in place, which we here have marked as vendor, and we have a customer data center in place. That is the bigger change. Our HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition infrastructure will be prepackaged into racks. This will happen before it arrives, or it will happen in place. And these racks will then be installed in the customer data center. The customer will provide the floor space, the power, the cooling, the electricity, and the network connections to their own networks. And then we will interact with the infrastructure provider to manage all that infrastructure. And then SAP, with its standard services, layers the blue parts on top. Together, SAP owns that deliverable to you, the customer. But underneath, there's 3 people involved, and one of them is you in the data center layer. So in case of our partnership, we have managed the infrastructure with our Lenovo partner, and also the infrastructure components themselves are created by Lenovo, constructed by Lenovo according to SAP designs, and then packaged and delivered to your data center, installed by Lenovo on-premise, and then run also on-premise by Lenovo. So their presence is local with the infrastructure or very nearby. And then, of course, underneath that, you see the data centers. And these are the data centers that you, the customer, already have and have told us that you want to run these infrastructures in. Then after that, on top, we provide the yellow parts as a standard service. And then, of course, you can extend that service with the gray parts, which is the application part. The delivery of such a service happens in a sequence, and the standard service is all mostly marked in blue. And the orange part here is where the changes occur with the customer edition. And the changes are mostly aligned with a longer delivery time. That is the bigger essence, and delivery time being longer has to do with shipment, with production, and racking and stacking, and with preparing the data centers, which all happens in parallel in that orange box. For the rest, our usual service portfolio applies, and you can discuss that with your sales representatives. To sort of cap it all off, you get the same set of features, so the same SLA, and the SLAs run from 99.5 through 4 nines. We actually run the HANA Enterprise Cloud at 5 nines in that level, but we contract up to 4. And we have, of course, in our normal delivery, quite a very flexible scale. But in the on-premise delivery, we'll have a phased scale, if you will. That is that we can accommodate the installation of your tiers in phases. So you can do dev first, QA, and then in production, and you will pay accordingly for the duration of the use of those environments. And then within that, there is a measure of scale, but it is not infinite. The scale is within the remaining resources, which will be slightly over-dimensioned. And if you then need to add more resources, we can add servers in or storage in and such things. And we'll take care of that for you on a planned capacity management approach in which you as a customer will be involved. And then we will create the extra resources and put them in place. The infrastructure itself, as it resides in your data center, is locked. This can either be through locked racks, which is by default, or if you prefer, you could build cages and will then go in there. The reference architecture is, of course, in play, adjusted to for the idiosyncrasies of any on-premise installation. As you can imagine, we are now somewhat more captive with the infrastructure than we were before, so we have to take a few different steps, but mostly it's entirely the same reference architecture. Then we innovate in the sense that when our providers provide us with better capabilities and new features, we integrate those into the offering, so there's no static place here. So to wrap it all up, the end story here is shown to you in 6 little bullets. Our SLAs apply as we normally deliver them. They are also in place for the customer edition. We can actually probably deliver up to 5 nines, but we contract for 3 and 4. Workload is scalable, but it is also somewhat captive. So we apply your phase delivery timing and we can add more hosts and other things. Reference architecture is the same as you're used to, no changes. And we will innovate the platform when we get new features from our partners. So now I'd like to bring it over to what our partner Lenovo does. Over to you, Ajay.
This was a very good summary of both the HANA Enterprise Cloud and also the new customer edition. And I'm going to key off of a couple of concepts you laid out there. One is the services mindset, and then the other is engineering the infrastructure to enable that services mindset. At the infrastructure layer of the overall system stack that you saw earlier, what we are bringing is very reliable and jointly engineered infrastructure. One of the key things is that's kind of where we start, and the services mindset being brought to on-premises lets you pay as you use for the data center infrastructure that you bring in. So these are the tools that are now available to you to address your business challenges of tomorrow. By doing it in this way, you reduce your upfront CapEx costs and also the risk, and can adjust your capacity as needed. Lenovo TruScale will provide full maintenance, support, and management of the on-premises infrastructure, meeting the SLAs for security and control and so on. Let's dig into this a little bit more. So what you see here is a high-level solution reference architecture that Ron was referring to. And at the infrastructure layer, you see 2 Lenovo constructs. On the right-hand side, starting with the management domain, you see ThinkAgile VX based nodes being used to deploy the management servers. These are bringing in the vSAN capability from VMware as the storage layer, and also based on the vSphere hypervisor, plus bringing in operational capabilities. Together, this is the VMware vCloud Foundation, or VCF for short, that you are well familiar with. That's what is driving the management domain in this solution. And then you switch over to the workload or the virtual infrastructure side shown here on the left. And this is built up using Lenovo ThinkSystem servers, where you would house the HANA VMs, also set up on top of VMware vSphere. So the total solution infrastructure is able to offer the HANA Enterprise Cloud landscape on premises using Lenovo ThinkSystem mission critical servers. You can get up to 8 sockets and 12 terabytes of memory, but that's available in smaller, medium, and large sort of t-shirt size chunks to consume. vSAN management domain, as we saw, is sitting on Lenovo ThinkAgile VX nodes. And together, these are integrated for a common management using VMware's lifecycle management that the Lenovo systems are enabled for. Let's double click into this solution architecture, and what you see here are additional components called out. Again, the key for us to realize is that this is a building block capability. So you see the ThinkSystem SR850P are shown on the left as the workload systems. These will be, for example, hosting the HANA VMs. On the right-hand side, you see the vSAN layer details. There is the storage along with instances for running various management services pulled together by the distributed switch. And then on top are operational and automation capabilities that VCF brings you. It also therefore allows the ability to bring in additional optional services that you may be interested in. This total solution reference architecture has been jointly engineered to meet the SLAs that were described earlier by Ron. So HANA Enterprise Cloud SLAs, which are well-liked and well-established, are also being brought to you in this on-premises infrastructure, both hardware and software infrastructure. And it's been designed to be highly resilient using concepts of highly reliable hardware components paired with availability and reliability capabilities in the software infrastructure as well. We recognize that you might have component failures, and these need to be accounted for. And this is where the design here has been jointly engineered by Lenovo, by SAP, and VMware teams sitting together so that we can bring the same SLAs to you on premises. Another double click here is showing us some more details of the solution. What we see, as I mentioned earlier, the SR850P servers, 4-socket. These are 2U in form factor and can be configured for 3 terabyte each. You start out with a minimum number, and then you can add more capacity to meet the needs that you have for your specific requirements. This is exactly the services mindset that we had mentioned earlier, which is the underlying theme throughout in this. You also see VX nodes, which are 2-socket 2U for the management domain. There is the option to do storage with Lenovo ThinkSystem DM7100 series. It can be configured with both flash-based and hard disk drive magnetic storage to meet the specific needs of the HANA operational capabilities. Also shown on this is the 1 gig management network, as well as the 25 to 100 gig data network. And you can see that there is redundancy in the design. Each server has a pair of links, and also each switch is being paired in this way. So the goal here is to provide high availability and resiliency against failure so that the operations that you care the most about are not disrupted. And as I said, keeping with the building block nature, you can deploy another ThinkSystem server, the SR950, which then lets you go up in the number of CPU sockets and also in the amount of memory. As I said, going up to 8 sockets and 12 terabytes. These are, again, managed jointly for ease of operation through the VMware lifecycle management integration. We have been very excited to join hands here with SAP and VMware. One of the key value propositions that Lenovo brings in this partnership is global coverage, presence throughout the world. In fact, we have been working with SAP for 25 years. There are 15,000 plus SAP HANA systems shipped and deployed. Engineering effort jointly sitting together in Germany, in other parts of Europe and in the US, doing certification. So there is ongoing certification and benchmarking activity between Lenovo and SAP, and also Lenovo and VMware. And this is where the teaming comes in, and we are able to put together a resilient solution architecture that you are seeing here. Many of these systems are the most reliable available out there, and also have been shown to achieve various world record benchmarks relevant to SAP HANA and SAP landscapes. And this is what we are very pleased to bring together, packaged in a way that your services construct can live on, in this case, of course, on premises. So hopefully that gave you a little insight into the infrastructure layer in the system stack, and to get some more in the software infrastructure. Let me now pass this on to our colleague, Dominic.
Hi, Dominic Uliano here. Just let's start talking about what value VMware brings to HANA TechEd CE. We're actually very excited to be partnering with both Lenovo and SAP on this great service. Everything we do at VMware around SAP solutions really is focused around these four pillars: making SAP as agile as possible, enabling faster time to market, enabling the IT to be much more responsive to the business, is really it's part and parcel to what we do. So not only do we want to just enable better density and better utilization of the hardware, but we want to enable SAP to be much more nimble and agile to the business via various automation and capabilities that we bring to the solution as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about our bill of materials in the solution in a minute, but beyond the hypervisor, beyond the software-defined storage, are things that enable the automation that Ajay was referring to just a moment ago. Of course, availability. SAP is the heart of any business, and it must be resilient and available. And if it's running on a VMware stack, we've got to ensure that SAP can run continuously. HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition, as you heard Ron say, is 3 nines, 4 nines contractually, but maybe even possible up to 5 nines. This comes between Lenovo, SAP, and VMware's capabilities that we bring to the table. And we're really excited about our capabilities that we bring from the VMware side. And I'll talk about more of those in a minute. And of course, security, right? Security is especially intrinsic security, layered security that's built into the solution. This is something that VMware is very focused on today, and it's something that we are ensuring that this solution is as secure as possible for our customers. Everything gets tied into how much is this going to cost? How much return on my investment can I get? And that's really one of the most important pieces of this, right? So everything we do, we want to ensure that we can be optimally around our TCO. Let's talk about what's in the bill of materials. As Ajay said, it's based on VMware Cloud Foundation. And VMware Cloud Foundation, I want to highlight just a couple of key components of this solution. First is the hypervisor, right? vSphere 7.0 Update 1. Highly capable hypervisor. It is our most capable hypervisor today, meaning that it can now support up to a 24 terabyte, 16 socket virtual machine. For HANA, it is currently supported for 6 terabyte virtual machine, up to 4 socket VM. It's also multi-VM capable, right, today. Now, we've got some future plans for vSphere 7.0 U1 that you'll see coming out very shortly, but the capabilities for HANA are growing very, very quickly there. Let's talk about vSAN, right? vSAN is our software-defined storage. It also is a highly capable software-defined storage that's been added into the VCF construct and part of this HANA Enterprise Cloud Customer Edition. This also has to be certified and validated for HANA, both as a software component and as part of this overall solution. So we're very excited to have this included. And then, of course, we have the SDDC manager, which also includes our lifecycle management. Lifecycle management is now done as a holistic model with selective capabilities of what gets updated and how it gets updated versus leaving an administrator up to their own to have to upgrade or update each individual component. Some of the automation pieces that Ajay was referring to go around vRealize automation, vRealize operations, and vRealize log insight. Those are capabilities that allow this offering to be much more nimble and agile for the customer. So let's move on and talk about HCI in general. Some customers may actually be not familiar with running HANA on HCI, but it's actually been a solution for about 3 years now. SAP started this program around HCI with Lenovo and VMware sometime, I believe, in 2017. And what this is the ability to run HANA in a combined hardware and software stack that's been certified by SAP. And because it's certified by SAP, it's also supported by SAP and VMware and Lenovo. Now, we run everything on a single compute unit. So that means that vSphere, vSAN are run directly with local attached storage, giving HANA optimal performance throughout the stack. Our solution with Lenovo, the one that Ajay just showed you, has been jointly engineered and jointly certified by VMware and Lenovo with oversight by SAP. And it is deeply integrated with the hardware so that it provides the resiliency and the availability that our customers require. Now, I talked about high availability in DR, and VMware is actually quite mature in this space. We actually have ways that we can help eliminate the single point of failure. So, for example, we know that the ASCS, right, essentially the central instance, as we used to call it, can be a single point of failure for SAP. By leveraging VMware fault tolerance, which is essentially an active to active or two instance model of the central instance, one is available, one is in a shadow, we can actually eliminate this single point of failure. If a host fails with the ASCS running on it, we have another instance of the ASCS virtualized that automatically takes over. No disruption to the business whatsoever. And that's actually, we're the only hypervisor or even hyperscaler platform that can offer this option. In addition, we have complementary capabilities that work along with Lenovo's capabilities as well as with HANA system replication called VMHA. VMHA is the automatic restart of a virtual machine on an available host. Now, if you combine this with HANA system replication with auto restart, you have an always two option, meaning there are always two HANA instances available in case one fails. This is used both in a highly available instance as well as in a disaster recovery scenario, okay? When you add other capabilities such as Site Recovery Manager, we can provide orchestration across sites, so intersite, that allow you to have automatic failover. It even allows you to do rehearsals and practices of this failover as well. These capabilities are very mature. They've been around for a long time, and they've been utilized by many of our joint VMware, Lenovo, and SAP customers. So I'd like to thank you for the time, and I'd like to turn it over to Ron now to wrap this up.
Thanks, Dominic and Ajay, for that insight. And now I would like to finish up. We've provided you with a lot of slide material in this deck, way more than we talked to, as you may have noticed, but we wanted to leave you with information that you could review on your own. We effectively wanted to create a scenario with the customer edition that is no different than what we do with our standard edition, as we've said before, except that we can deliver this now with a partner for the infrastructure and with a partner for the data center, in which case that would be the customer. The effect of the customer edition is that it permits you to perhaps change the innovation speed of your existing environment, be that your landscape components or be that the way you consume the SAP softwares in a fashion of CapEx and OpEx, as this will now permit you to use subscription as well and not only bring your own license. Our call to action really is to engage your SAP representatives to discover more about this particular offer and how it might fit on your needs for innovation and for better use of your SAP licensing. There are some links here for contact information that you may use to get more details. The additional information that we have provided is accessible through these particular connections. That's where we would leave our content. In the end, we would like to encourage you to really take a look at the SAP Learning Hub and take a see what it can do for you. It's been set up for this particular event, so you can actually experience it. Content there is quite extensive. This concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank our co-speakers for their participation, and I hope you found value in this content.
Woo!